Hi readers, it's Miss Sarah here again. On Monday, we learned how important it was to get to know the characters in our stories by thinking about what they do, say, like and dislike. Today, we're going to go one step further and learn how to make inferences. You might think, Miss Sarah, what is an inference and why is that important? Well, in real day life, sometimes our friends or our parents don't tell us exactly what they're thinking or feeling. So we have to use what we know about the world and what people in our lives are saying to help us make inferences about how they might be feeling right at that moment. So, how do you make an inference, do you ask? Well, there are a few steps to that. And before we get to that, what is an inference? An inference is what the author does not say. So just like the example Miss Sarah shared, where maybe you have a friend and they're being really grumpy and they might say, oh, I don't want to play with you anymore. Or they might say, my tummy hurts. And maybe it's really close to lunchtime, right? It's at recess right before lunch. You might make an inference that your friend is feeling really hungry, and that's why they're saying mean things, stomping their feet, and saying their tummy hurts. It's the same thing in our stories. The author's not always going to tell us what our characters are thinking or feeling. So, to make an inference, we need to look at clues from the text by checking out those pictures and the words in our stories. What is the author telling us about our characters? Then we can use something called schema, which is this big fancy word, and all it means is what you already know. So what do you know about the world that might be a hint about what your characters are thinking or feeling? When I make an inference, I can talk about what the picture shows, the word shows, what I already know, and then you say, I infer that blank, and how you know that. I know this because, or instead of this word know, because we're taking guesses, we're not totally sure, you can also change that to, I think this because. All right, so to help us out, let's think back to that book Miss Sarah read to us, Frog and Toad Are Friends. We read the first chapter in this book, Spring. And in this chapter, Frog starts off. Frog goes to Toad's house. He tries to get him up out of bed, but Toad he says, go away. And he pulls the covers over his head. He really doesn't want to go outside, right? Even when Frog drags him out, he says, go back to sleep. Why don't you wake me up when it's 1/2 May? So Frog, he says, okay, instead of leaving, he plays a trick on Toad. He changes the calendar. So it said November, but now it doesn't say November anymore. It says it's May. And when he tricks Toad, then they're able to play together and have a fun time in the spring sunshiny weather. So we can infer a few things about these two characters. So I'm going to try to do a thing, and let's see if it works. Okay. And hopefully this works, friends. Wish Miss Sarah luck. All right, so now you should see Miss Sarah's floor, and you should also see a picture that I showed you all on Monday. We can learn about the character by what they say, do, like, and dislike. Now, using all of this in our stories as we read can help us make an inference. So let's start and make some inferences about Frog and Toad. Well, The first thing that Frog says is, "Wake up, Toad, the sky is shining, we can go frolic in the woods and the forest and play together." And even when Toad says, "Go away," Frog doesn't give up. So one thing we can infer about Frog is that he is a good friend to Toad. The author doesn't say Frog is a good friend, but that's one thing that I can infer. So if I look back to my sentence stems, we would say, I can infer that Frog is a good friend. I think this because even when Toad says, "Go away," he doesn't leave. He keeps trying to convince Toad to get out of bed. Now, let's think about Toad. What does Toad say or do in the book? Well, Toad says, "Wake me up later. Sleep didn't hurt anyone." So one thing I can infer is Toad likes to sleep. I can infer that Toad likes to sleep because one thing Toad does, well, one thing he says is that sleep never hurt anyone, and another thing he does is he pulls those blankets back over his head. Another thing that I can infer about Toad is that he's a little bit lazy, right? He wants to just be in bed all day. He would stay there for months if Frog let him. Let's make one more inference together about Frog. Well, another thing that Frog does at the end is he tries not once, not twice, but 3 times to get Toad out of bed to play with him in the springtime. So one word I can use about Frog is determined, right? When Toad says, "Go away," he doesn't leave. When Toad goes back in the house the second time and pulls over the covers, Frog doesn't leave. He keeps trying until he finally tricks Toad into thinking that it's May on the calendar. And that's how we know Frog is quite a determined character. So, making inferences is really tough work, friends. So give your brain a little rub, maybe give it a kiss, because you did some hard thinking about your characters. Great job making inferences today. Now it's your turn to make inferences about the characters in your books. Happy reading, friends. I'll see you again soon.